Hey y'all, it's your boy Thane here again with NAA 360, here to give you some more tasty tips on all things 360 media related. I'm talking 360 photo and 360 video. Today I'm going to be talking about spatial metadata. That's right, spatial metadata. We all might be a little bit more familiar with metadata, given that in a post-processing program like Adobe Lightroom, it's usually the type of data like aperture, shutter speed, ISO, frame rate if you're in Premiere Pro. Anyway, it's the kind of the accessory data that you want to have as reference to whatever photo or video you're capturing. But spatial metadata, that sounds a little bit more exotic, and that's because it is. It's specifically and primarily meant for 360 media. As DC Spatial Services defines, it is the metadata that provides the means for discovering spatial information by identifying what, where, who, when, and how the data behind the information is constructed. Metadata is the means to disclose what the spatial data describes, as well as how it should and can be used. That was a great definition, and if you want to learn more about even creating spatial metadata, you can check the link in the description below to the PDF that I sourced today's definition from. It's a very nice little introduction to it, so feel free to check that out if that's something that interests you. But a more practical explanation of it would be more like there's a grid-like format that's overlaid on top of the photo, which innately looks like a panoramic, with kind of a spherical warping given the nature of the double fisheye lens that most 360 cameras use to make their pictures. And this grid-like overlay gets placed over, and it's used for a 360 viewer to be able to trace that as you either drag from between points or in a headset look across, those points are going to connect a line that creates a flow of the data that is your photo to resemble what your natural viewing is, which is 360. When you're looking around just in your normal day experience, it's trying to emulate that, and it needs that data. Otherwise, the viewer won't even recognize it as a 360 VR experience, whether it's a photo or a video. And to be honest, that's what you want. I can't express how essential this spatial metadata is to your product coming out the way that you want it to as a VR creator, whether in photo or video. And to be honest, I had set up today's video to be more of a tutorial of the tools in which I'll later show, but I checked, and Adobe Lightroom has stopped stripping the data, and that's usually practically how you find out about this, is that you would put it through your post-process, and me being someone that loves Adobe, uses the Adobe ecosystem, it's great. I use it for Lightroom, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and Audition, and I'd really love to learn some more. It's a great service. But usually, being that 360 media is still not quite mainstream, it would see that as extra stuff that it doesn't need. It's not the aperture, it's not the ISO, it's not even the GPS, which they now will generate a location tag using the GPS metadata, which is great. But it would see that as extra, as not ticking any of those boxes as being essential to the photo or what their consumers normally want, and they would strip it right off, and you would be stuck with a panoramic. And you know, panoramics are great. I make a lot of 360 panoramics. It's a really amazing way to do the widest possible angle, you know, of everything, but make it look, you know, kind of like a normal photo still, unless you really like start looking around like, oh, this is everything. You know, you might be confused, just think this is just like a super wide angle, but in fact, it's the widest angle. The problem is that 360s make their media straight out the gun with a kind of spherical warp to it, so at places it just doesn't quite look right, and that's heavily due to the nature of the really short focal length that you're dealing with these double fisheye lenses that creates this warp. So you need a secondary process to really get rid of that distortion and flatten it out if you want to get it to look like a photo proper, instead of something that if somebody looked at it like that's kind of trippy, but did they mean to do that? You know, and it kind of takes away from it. So there are super amount of secondary photos you can make out of a VR experience, you know, and I love doing it. The little planets, the panoramics, all great. They each have their own, you know, inherent value and kind of artistic value, but it's not what the camera makes straight out the gun, and it's not what the camera is initially intended to. That's why I say they're kind of derivations off of VR and not necessarily what a 360 camera is meant to build. And what it's meant to do is that VR experience, and it is utterly essential that you have the spatial metadata attached. And it would be great, to be honest, if more cameras made it a little bit more protected. But it's also comforting to know that people like Adobe are starting to pay attention and starting to make it to where you can re-inject that. And they had already done that. They'd done a great job already with their VR video workflow, and just adding at the export stage a VR section where you can just tick a box and boom, spatial metadata re-injected. And now that it's not so much a problem in Lightroom, it really is, hopefully will be something of the past. But it's really important to know what it is, and it's really important to know that this isn't just, inherently the photo isn't made this way. It's something that's connected with it, an overlay, in case it gets damaged. In case it gets stripped for whatever other program you might be using strips it. And the easiest way to do that with photos is, and I'll attach a link in the description below, to Exit Fixer. It's a link to their website. You just download the program, and it's almost as easy as the Premiere Pro process with their export. It's literally importing your 360 photo that you found has had its metadata either damaged or stripped, and it just re-injects that spatial metadata. And even a function that I used on it a lot was that it will delete the old one without the metadata and replace it with a copy that has that injected metadata. So that's a great function. Still, along the lines of Adobe, I would like to see more, though. Like I said, I was very excited. I almost questioned myself whether I needed to make this video today, given that it was fixed. But, knowing about this is preventative, I guess, in this case. This video is teaching you something that, though, might be a little more antiquated today than it was yesterday. It's good to know that this exists, and it's good to know how to fix it in case it more likely now gets damaged than anything. And the easiest way to do that is through Exit Fixer and Adobe Premiere Pro. But that doesn't mean Adobe couldn't be doing more. I would love to see like a dedicated little planet generator within Lightroom and Photoshop. I would love to see a ability to toggle on and off the VR viewer within those programs, and it wouldn't be too necessarily hard because they're already doing that toggle feature within Premiere Pro, as well, having VR transitions, VR effects. The only thing I would like to see in Premiere Pro is more of them. I would like to see Adobe commit to this media wholesale and be on this exploration with us and not catching up as other party programs are seemingly doing a little bit more commitment to it. And maybe that's because the market wasn't as demanding for it. But you know what? With the arrival of the metaverse, we need to commit to this, because this is the only way that you can truly put real captured stuff on the metaverse that fits the platform, and that's VR. So we need stuff that's generating VR content and doing things not already that, are the bare necessities, but really exploring what you can do. You're capturing everything in these programs. And when you capture everything, there's a lot to do with a lot, So I would love to see Adobe commit to that a little bit more, but that's no hate. I love Adobe. Their ecosystem is amazing. Like I said, I use for whether it's audio, video, or photo, I'm sold on Adobe. I really love their stuff, and I would really just like them to really kind of get a little bit more experimental with what you can do with this, because it isn't like other media. What you capture is what you capture. You're capturing an entire environment. You're capturing more than just a vantage. You're capturing an experience, and it can be that experience, and that's the amazing part, and that's why you need the spatial metadata, because that's the primary task of it. So all in all, today we learned about spatial metadata and how it is utterly essential to our VR creation. You cannot have VR without the spatial metadata. We talked about some kind of practical ways that it comes about that it might be stripped or damaged. We talked about how great Adobe is, but kind of how there is room for improvement and more commitment to 360 media. And we talked about exit fixer and the export settings within Premiere Pro, in which you can re-inject any damaged or stripped spatial metadata in a really easy, it's just a couple clicks. Otherwise, I would do a tutorial. I think I was going to do the tutorial more to show the whole process of through the Adobe programs of how it gets stripped and how then tacked on you can fix it with a couple clicks. But given that they're fixing it, and they're getting on it, that's exciting too. And I hope you stay excited. If you've just gotten into 360 media or you're thinking about it, be excited. This is still not a mainstream thing. There isn't any things that are 100% set in stone, but they can be closer and closer set in stone by people like you who jump in and start creating things, set norms, set standards, set styles. Maybe even if it's in your wheelhouse to manipulate some of this stuff, create a new way to use 360 media. It's a really open field for us to really build in Minecraft style. So it's a sandbox for sure. So I hope you're excited. I hope my takes today were somewhat beneficial to you. If anything, it's good preventative knowledge to know that this stuff exists. In case anything ever happens to it, you know exactly what's going on. There won't be any questions. You won't have to dig through the threads on Reddit or the 360 blogs to find out what's going on. You'll already know, and you'll already know how to fix it. Again, if you like the definition, you want to learn more about spatial metadata, go check out that link in the description below, as well as the link to the Exit Fixer site where you can download their cool little tool. Really like it. Super simple to use. Worked every time. No complaints. Go ahead and hit the like button, smash that subscribe, and comment with maybe some questions or your take on this or anything 360 media related. Please leave it in the comments. I would love to discuss about this more. This is truly my passion. I'm so sold on VR media, and I find it to be my primary concern, along with just videography and photography in general as well. But definitely I consider myself first and foremost a 360 artist. It excites me. It's what got me into video and photography, was that I first got a 360 camera and I was like, I better learn a little bit about these other ones and their more traditional formats if I'm going to really be committed to trying to be a creator in this format. So it's completely changed my whole trajectory and my passions. I never thought I would be doing stuff with video and photo, let alone VR. And it's just been super beneficial, and I'd love to share it with you guys. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And as always, stay wholesome, my friends.